Hey guys, welcome this week to the segment. Very exciting this week. We have Mr. Dave Warriner in. He should be running for president, this man. He's a fantastic bloke, long-time Territorian. He's got a great, rich history here in the NT. Welcome, David. How are you, mate?
Thanks, Chris. I've never heard of president before.
Mate, that hat, I mean, absolutely.
You want me to take it off?
Mate, no, make the territory great again. So, mate, tell us about, obviously, I'm really looking forward to this. This is, soul of the earth kind of stuff. So tell us about Agricon.
Well, Agricon started in early 2005. I'd been working in the pastoral industry corporate sector for basically all the years since I left school in 1982, so it was quite a few years. And at that point in time, I was running a company called Alice Springs Pastoral Company, which was owned by a Greek guy called Gregory Hadjileferiadis.
Holy shit, you got it out.
Who, a terrific guy, brilliant businessman, and has been a good mentor of mine. And I was only talking to him not too long ago when he was in COVID lockdown in Greece. And anyway, I ran that company for him for a few years.
Yep.
And the business model there was organic beef production. We had the biggest supply chain in the country at the time, I believe, with a B double into Coles every week.
Yep.
We sold that business to a couple of Central Queensland cattlemen. And so that was the genesis of David Warriner's Agricon.
Great.
In those days, we called it Capricorn RPM because it was local on the Rockhampton, being on the Tropic of Capricorn. That's what we called it. Once I moved north, we changed the name of it. And I bought those guys out, and we came up into the Northern Territory 2007.
So tell us about the product or the services of Agricon, okay? For example, you're a little bit different because part of your client base is very much international.
Well, it seems to have fallen down that way without any intentions. When we started the business, we just went to the market to see what we did. We approached individuals, Australian individuals, the pastoral companies, and all those sort of potential clients. And it seemed that the client that we were attracting was the high net worth individuals who invariably were foreign.
Yep.
And so ever since then, Tipperary came along, and Mr. Myers obviously owns Tipperary. He's not foreign, but he's an absentee landlord, and we did that for a few years for him. And then all of our clients since then have been foreign.
So is that atypical that someone will ask you to come in and they'll invest from overseas and they'll say, David, your company, we want you to manage the property, staff the property, right down to the balance sheet, manage the stock? I mean, is that too far? Is that what you do?
Oh, no, we'll do the whole lot except the final accounts.
Got it.
Which are done by accountants and, the statutory stuff. We don't do that, or I don't employ accountants.
Yep. But you staff them as well.
We will staff properties if we have to. We did have our own employment services business once, but it proved we didn't really need that.
Yeah.
We could just do it through our own business. But from time to time we have done that. Yes, we have staff.
So quickly give me the resume, because you've worked on some really significant properties here in Australia. So just rattle through if you can. So there's Tipperary.
Oh, well, in my client sort of portfolio at the moment, we did Tipperary. We finished with that.
Yep.
That was a great experience. That ended in 2015. Since then, we've been working for the most recent investors up here, Cross Pacific Investments. They're South American-based investors in this Man-Baloo aggregation down there near Catherine. Before that, we were doing some work for the Vietnamese investors down at Larimer, and we've done a lot of other work just with investors looking and planning, and some have not invested, some have, but a lot of my time is spent with people who haven't even invested yet. COVID has dried that part of the business up, actually, because they can't come out here. So the worry is in the next year or two, my business cycle is going to suffer then rather than now.
Okay. So tell me about this. Let's talk the Northern Territory. So roughly, what is the Northern Territory cattle industry worth, just broadly?
Oh, well, we've got about 2.2 million cattle in the Territory, and I think probably we would sell $700 million worth of cattle a year out of the Northern Territory.
Yep.
There's cattle that come in from WA and South Australia and Queensland through Darwin into the live trade.
Yep.
There's some significant numbers, but they're only passing through. But really, the Territory herd, I think, is good for 700 million. Really.
And so if I was, and forgive me, I don't know much about the industry, but if I was a cattle producer, what sort of turnover am I going to need to do with my cattle to stay afloat? I guess if that's the right terminology, is there a percentage, or how do I stay afloat every year?
Well, if you only want to stay afloat, you don't have to do much.
Really?
Well, that means you're just breaking square.
Yeah.
But if you actually want to have a good investment, you've got to be very dynamic in what you do and productive and proactive and really you're talking turnover. There's quite a few businesses that probably only turn over 20 or 22% of their inventory a year. We call it herd churn.
Yep.
How much of your herd do you sell? Yep. I think you should strive to sell about 30% in Northern Australia in a typical breeder model.
Yep.
Down south you get higher because you sell your cattle as weaners and, so you run more cows and therefore you sell a higher number. But up here, you aim for 30%.
And do many people get that 30%?
Oh, yeah, the good operators can, yeah.
Okay.
Good operators can, but rarely.
All right, so let's go back about 10 years. The poor old NT got shut down. Very, very famous. We made sort of the world news there. You were out at Tipperary Station?
We were still at Tipperary then, yeah.
Yeah, so what impact did that have on the industry? Was it? I mean, it seemed to be very doom and gloom.
Oh, it was pretty bad. I think, the trade just shut overnight. The minister just shut the trade due to pressure from social media.
Yeah.
Get Up it was their first big project, and they were successful. They got what they needed.
Yeah.
The government got spooked.
Yeah. And
so they reacted, and that's what they did. And obviously, last week, the court case of last month proved that it was a bad decision.
Yep.
So, did we? The industry. It was a terrible time, but I think the industry was, aside from the financial impact, the industry was exposed to something we, in our hearts, felt was an abhorrent act, and that everybody thought that that's how we operated, and it's not. Like, Australians have been good cattlemen for 150 years. You can't have a good business unless you've got good cattlemanship. Otherwise, your cattle aren't going to perform. So, on the land, I think our cattlemanship's been excellent for a long, long time. We had an incident in a foreign country where someone filmed it in one abattoir, and it shut the whole trade down and tarred us all with the same brush. And I think that tarring had just about as much effect on the people as the financial impact. And no one's even considered that yet. We were talking about this court case. Yeah. That's only for the financial part.
Yeah, correct.
The psychological effect of being called, cruel bastards and all that sort of stuff was pretty bad as well.
Yeah. So fast forward, here we are in the middle of COVID.
Yep.
Very, very interesting. I would say most of the sectors that I work in are completely shut and are finding it very, very difficult to trade. Here we find the cattle industry where very few people are losing their jobs right now. And I don't know if it's accurate to say most people are doing okay in the industry. Is that accurate?
At the production level, yes. I think that's very accurate. The industry is considered to be counter-cyclical anyway. And because we're remote, we're not living in a city, so we're not constrained by the lockdowns and those sort of things. The head offices of the pastoral companies have certainly copped a hit.
Yep.
The AACOs and the CPCs of the world, they're copping it. But at the production level, I think the industry's pretty strong with COVID.
Yep.
The exporters and the importers and that side of the market is a little bit more difficult that, we've got things to deal with there that weren't there pre-COVID.
Yep.
But the market is still operating. We're still shipping, we're still loading the ships, unloading the ships,
good.
and when it first hit, we didn't really even know how that was going to happen.
Yeah, right. So for me, little old me over here that knows not much about the production process, I know I go to Woolworths and there's my bit of meat. Tell me about the complexities that most of us don't see that cattle producers have to now deal with. I imagine OH&S, litigation. In my mind, my dad was a dairy farm. My dad's dad was a dairy farmer in Queensland, and he could stay in the one paddock, and he only did dairy farming. What are the complexities now that most of us don't see that farmers have to go through or producers have to go through?
Well, producers sell cattle at the farm gate, really, and beyond that, if you can value add your product, you've got someone else doing it, like a meat processor and the participants through the value chain. But those guys have got a very different skill set in business than what you have on the land as a cattle producer. A very good cattle producer should never lose sight of the coalface. You've got to know what your business is and how to do it well. Yeah. You've got to deal with on the side of that nowadays the risks of your animal welfare issues, not so much whether we do it or not, but how you sell it, how you report it, and how you continue to justify that you're doing the right thing to the general public. Yep. Social license, that word that was invented in 2011, which we didn't know that existed. Yeah, we didn't even know it existed. Yep. You've obviously got your OH&S stuff, you've got your environmental stuff, you've got all these other issues that we've got to deal with, and you have to deal with them because it's just direct liability at the end of the day. If you don't deal with it and something happens, you're in the firing line. Yeah.
So tell me this. Give me an example of what's a common mistake that you've seen in your long, professional career. What's a common mistake in your industry that young cattle producers will make?
Well, one, if they have too much debt.
Yeah.
The real wealth creator in all of this is the land appreciation over a long period of time. Now, that land appreciation might plateau for 10 or 15 years, and you'll get nothing, and you've got to be able to weather that. And then you've got to really understand that your debt of your land and your cattle is only supported by the income from the cattle. So your cash flow is always a bit tight.
Yeah.
And so you've really got to be aware of that. And the other mistake people make is, what you see is not always, what you see and think is the best is not what always is the most productive and the most profitable. Like a beautiful, shiny 550, 600 kilo Brahman cow there that's beautiful and comes up and licks you and all that. She might have had a calf when she was 5 years old and she might have had 2 since, and now she's 12. Well, you don't need her.
She's useless.
She's absolutely useless. So you're better off with something a little bit more inferior that has calves and knows how to raise them. But having said that, you've got to always improve the quality of your herd, not so much the individuals in the herd, but the average quality of your herd has always got to improve. And it's a bit like any business. You've got to always keep that top line going up because your costs always go up, and the only way you get your top line going up is through productivity improvement.
So what I'm hearing is that obviously it's so easy to raise capital these days. A lot of people don't learn the art of organically growing their business. You've still got to, in that area, organically grow your business. Tell me this, is diversification a word that cattle producers warm to, or are they more, this is what I do, or has our markets and our industries changed so much that we've all got to diversify? Is that a foreign word?
Definitely not a foreign word, but I think you've got a variety of opinion about it in the cattleman. Like if a cattleman's got a very good business and that's what he does, and that could be a guy at Cloncurry or Catherine or somewhere, and he's got a very good business, good cattle, good business model, and it works well, he doesn't have to diversify other than to mitigate the risk by having another income stream in case his cattle business, but he might not want to. But most cattlemen understand that it is a good idea to diversify.
Yep.
And you'll find the good ones probably do.
Yep.
The reason people don't is probably because they can't, because they've got too much debt and they probably overstocked their properties for a number of years, and so their productivity's on the ground, and they can't afford to diversify, and that's a problem.
So listen, I know that going back to Agricon, you've got great ambitions, and it sounds like there's great opportunities for your business out there on an international level, which is fantastic for, I guess, for our sort of territory economy. You don't hear every day that someone's having a crack international, but wish you all the very, very best with that. And the last question I've got for you, mate, what is, without doubt, the best cut of meat? Come on, give it to me.
It's a cube roll. But you would know. You would know.
What the hell is a cube roll?
Cube roll is a Scotch fillet in your language. I'm in the meat game.
Why do they call it a cube roll?
Because that's the terminology in the Osmeat specs.
Okay, I'm going to go into Woolies and ask them for a cube roll.
No, go to the butcher and they'll tell you. Woolies didn't have a clue.
Mate, all the very, very best. Thank you for coming in.